But yes, we want to examine, we want discipline to change behavior. And discipline does not have to be severe to change behavior in some cases.
Chief, last question?
Chief, can you give me an update on the ongoing investigation on the shooting last month involving the officer shooting involving Brian Collins, the double amputee was killed?
No, you know, that's still an ongoing investigation, and I really have no updates in this regard. But I will I will just say this about our CIT training in general, and I think this is very important for the public to know and understand, because sometimes when we have tragic incidents, people will immediately think or point to, well, HPD must need additional training, or the training is not working, or the training is not right. The state of Texas requires 16 hours in crisis intervention training. Every officer in the Houston Police Department has that training. And since 2009, every officer has been trained in 40 hours. The Houston Police Department go above and beyond just the 16 hours. We have over 1,800 personnel in this organization that have over 40 hours of CIT training. 1,400 of those officers are in patrol. People say, well, why wasn't a CIT unit on some of these incidents, Chief? There's a difference between crisis intervention training and a CIT unit. A CIT unit is a police officer that has the 40 hours of training, as I'm speaking, along with a civilian clinician. That's a Harris County employee. We have 10 of those for 24-hour coverage. Those are not my employees, the clinician. Those 10 units respond to over 25,000 calls a year. And usually the most that we have on duty is 2 per shift. Now, what you must remember, and this is important, when officers have a clinician in the car with them, the clinician cannot engage until the officer has rendered the scene safe. We do not put clinicians in positions, send them in houses, buildings, where the officer has not rendered the scene safe. And one other thing, as I close, that I want to touch on, shootings in general, when it comes to officers using deadly force. You know, the most extreme force that we can use to protect ourselves or others. I want people to keep in mind also, there's strict laws that governs officers' use of force. But that law does not require an individual to be armed with any weapon before the officer uses deadly force. Now, the reason why most people are armed is because officers show incredible restraint prior to using deadly force. I can't think of many officers that want to be investigated by Harris County grand jury, homicide, internal affairs, sometimes the FBI, U.S. Justice Department. I just don't see officers inviting that type of stress into their lives. These life and death decisions are made in a matter of milliseconds and sometimes seconds. You know, and we consider all life precious in the Houston Police Department, whether that's ours or someone else. But I certainly understand what officers have to go through, and I just wish sometimes that, you know, we should be reminded, we should wait till all the facts and evidence is revealed before we start to make judgments about training and what an officer should or should not do. There's no other person better in this organization to stand here and tell you I understand, because I've had to use deadly force myself to protect my life. And I certainly wasn't thinking about what are people going to say? What are the jury going to do? What does state law say? I wanted to go home that night. And that's what was important to me. I wanted to stay alive, and I wanted to go home, and I wanted the threat to stop. So I've been on both ends. And I've heard how people can quickly second judge the action of a police officer who wasn't on the scene, who've never been in a deadly force situation, who've never been afraid that you were going to die at that given moment. We got to remember, the standard to use deadly force is a reasonable officer standard. And police officers are not robots. They're humans. They got warm, red blood that runs through their veins. All right, thank you very much.